In this video, I'm going to show you how to get this tone using just free VST plugins from Reaper, so check it out. Okay, so what I'll be showing you now is the top 7 free VST plugins. You'll be able to see here we have the Reaper free version loaded up as our digital audio workstation we're working on today. And what you'll see, we have 3 tracks here. So that they're the drum track, the left guitar, and the right guitar. So all of the plugins that we're using are completely free to download. You'll be able to see in the description box below exactly where to download those files. As well as with any guitar recording I do, I use my guitar plugged straight into the Scarlett 2i2 interface, and essentially that will allow to record the track to the DAW. So link again for the Focusrite is in the description. If you want to use my Amazon affiliates, that will take you straight through to where to get one for yourself. So once we've got the 3 tracks here, the reason we have 2 guitar tracks in this example is that it's often preferred to sort of pan the first recording all the way to the left, pan the second recording all the way to the right hand side, and that just beefs up the tone as opposed to just recording once. So just double up on all the tracks that you're recording and it would sound much better. So to start off with, for the purpose of this video, we're going to be keeping that at like essential so we can hear it through both headphones, left and right. Otherwise, if you're a headphone user, you'd only hear it out your left, which, you know, would sound pretty naff. So what it will do is go into the effects tab right here. This will pop up this window, and just to scan for your new plugins, because you would have just downloaded them now, if you go to add effects, and then you'll be able to see under the effects tab again, scan for new plugins. Once you do that, it will populate under a new tab just there, and you'll be able to see them all listed just there. So just select the one that you want. To start off with, we'll be selecting the Gtune. This is a great free plugin, which is essentially just a guitar tuner, does what it says, and yeah, you'll just be able to tune it to any hertz that you want there. The next one underneath this is where it starts to get interesting. This is Rough Rider 3. Now, this is a compressor software, so it allows the tone to just tighten up a bit, and also it gives you a bit more balance with the volume. So what we have is the presets under this main box at the top. I've just gone straight ahead and selected the third one, which is just a bit off the top, I guess. And that is just a really good starting point for the compression. So if we just go through on what the basic tone sounds like, this is before we've added any of the VST effects. You'll be able to have a playthrough right now. Just mute the drums. So that's with it off, and now we'll enable it. Okay, so you can see there, it just gives it a bit more beef, a bit more sort of power to the recording. So the next one here, this is where most of the tone is coming from, and also this is where most of the adjustment would be for how you like the amp head to be set up. This is the TSE X50. So this is a great free head for an amp. This is based, I believe, on the 5150. So, you know, bands like Gtune that use them pretty heavily. This gives you a great alternative, like a free version of that. So once this is loaded up, you'll be able to see we have the pre-gain set to around 4. So that, again, depends on what sort of tone you want to go for. Then with the lows, on my guitar, I'm using the Epiphone G400 that you heard in the start of the video. So it's a bit more bassy, especially with the strings I've got on there at the moment. So I've turned the low down anywhere from 3 to 5 in that case. Sounds really good for my guitar setup. This, again, will depend entirely on your guitar, the strings you're using, etc., etc. So the mids, again, want to keep that anywhere from like 3 to 6, I'd say. And then the highs, this is where you want to boost the highs a bit more just to cut through the mix. So in this case, I've got it on 8, but anywhere from 6 to 9, I'd say, is quite a good setup. The post gain, you want it to be quite beefy. So again, we've got that at about 7.5. Low end, we kept that down just to sort of keep the bass low. And the presence, you want to boost the presence, especially with bands like Gtune. I keep mentioning them, they're my favorite bands, so why not? Again, you want to keep that sort of piercing the mix at about 7, 8, 6 to 8, I would say. So once you've got that, we'll enable this, and I'll show you what it sounds like. It will sound quite fuzzy. That's because we need to back that up with a cabinet. So this is literally as if you just went ahead and just plugged your guitar into an amp head without a cabinet. It will sound pretty crap, to be honest. So this is what it sounds like just with a head. So I won't play that for too long because otherwise it'll give you a headache. So that's what the head sounds like. So to complement that, of course, we need a cabinet. So what software are we using for that? That would be the Ignite NAD IR. So IR stands for impulse responses, if you're unfamiliar. And an IR is essentially a capture of a cabinet. So you just mic up a cabinet, you record it, and you could put the essence of what that amp is, or rather the cabinet, you could put that essence into literally a .wav file or WAV file. So in other words, you have an infinite amount of different choices. Literally just by clicking a button, you'll be able to load in your favorite impulse responses. So with this enabled, I can see on here, because this is my left track usually before we've sort of centered it out, this would be 100% panned left. So to ensure that it is, using just the box on the left here for the mic setup, we've set the balance 100% left. We want the room to be fairly low as the setup here, because the more you increase this, the boomier it gets, as if you're in like a large room. And then what we have is a high pass and a low pass filter. So typically starting with a high pass, you want to keep that around the hundreds, and then just play around. The higher you get, it just changes the tone slightly. So keep that anywhere from around 100 to, in this case, 143. Then the low pass, again, a good starting point on that would be around sort of 10 kilohertz, around there. And then just boost that according to what you feel is good. Resonance, anywhere from 0 to 20%, really. You don't want to push that too high, because otherwise it does get a bit too sort of lost and a bit too echoey. Delay, don't touch that. I'll keep that at 0. And there we go. So that is the main setup there. For the actual sort of cab tone, I'm using the God's cab. So again, that will be linked below. And this is an SM7B with no tube screamer in front. So there'll be a couple of folders you'll find on there. I just selected this one because it sounds good for me. Again, literally all you need to do is double click on any of these and it will change the tone immediately. And yeah, so once we've got that, we'll just enable this. And this is how it sounds with the cab now. So immediately it's got a much better tone on there. So it sounds a bit more full, a bit more complete. Okay, so that is the main gist of getting the guitar tones. So that is now a full amp setup digitally and virtually. So the next thing we need to do is have a look at EQing. So that is quite an important part of the puzzle, to EQ the final tone just to get it exactly how you like. Mainly as well because with certain guitars, they might have a specific wavelength that sounds very, very high pitch or quite distorted, not pleasant on the ears. So you want to target that, and that again, that's specific to each guitar. So the first one, this is actually built into Reaper, so it's a free EQ setting. So this is ReaEQ, I believe that's how you pronounce it. We'll just tick this. What you'll be able to see, we have sort of 4 settings here. The first box right here, you want to enable this as a high pass and tick the log scale automated frequencies box as well. What I've done is just cut out the low end, so that will just make sure that it doesn't boost the bass on the track. So I've set this to about 134. Again, anywhere from around 100 is usually recommended. The gain is 0 just for the nature of the high pass, and also the bandwidth is 2.1. So they're the settings I use. Again, you can change that to your own. The second one, so this is more of a dip because I've kind of singled out a specific tone range that I mentioned about the bad frequency in your ear. So this is just a small band EQ. Typically, the gist of how to do this is go along the scale. So you can drag this, drag it up, and then just bring it left, bring it right. And what you would do when you play the actual track behind doing this, you'll be able to hear that it gets really, really high pitch, almost like a whale call or something like that. The higher up the spectrum you go. So the higher that number, as it goes into the 2s, 3s, 5s especially, around the 4K mark, 4 or 5K mark is where it gets quite hissy. You'll be able to then hear it much better if you put the gain all the way up. So drag this all the way up. When you hear that, keep it there. And then all you need to do is go down to this gain option. I've got it on minus 2.7, and you can literally just drag it down, and that will create the EQ dip for you. So 2.7 is what I had it at, so we'll leave it there. And the bandwidth, so as you drag this left, it will close this loop here. So right now, 0.68, it's kind of got a bit more of a shallow curve to it, but the smaller you make this, it will single out that specific tone range a lot smaller. So if you drag that the opposite, if you drag that all the way to the right-hand side, what it will do, it would almost flatten this curve. So the curve will take out a lot more of the surrounding frequencies as well as that particular one you're trying to target. So it really depends if you want to target small or a broad range of EQ there. I've left the third band out. So in this case, I don't need it. Some guitars, actually, you might find it would be good to have a second dip here. This is kind of in between around the 2.6 or 2600 hertz range. So if you want to take these settings into account, that's 2624, and then the gain is -4. So it's quite a big chunk you're taking out there. So play around with it at your own accord. And the last one would be the low pass. So this will do exactly what the high pass does, just with the high end frequencies, in which case we've got that set to around 11,400, say. And then the gain just there, -13.8, doesn't matter too much there. And the bandwidth, again, 1.18, doesn't matter too much. So with the frequency of the low pass here, you want to have it around 10,000 plus, and that will cut out the top end, the really, really high pitch frequencies. And when you play that in the mix, that is much, much better for the mix itself. So that is the EQ that we've got set up there. And what you can do as well, if you want to save that as a preset, just hit that plus button. And once you've got that, you can name it anything you like, and that will save directly onto the DAW for next time you're making a guitar video. So with the EQ off, let's just hear. And then halfway through, when I play this track, I'll enable it just so you can get the difference audibly. I'm going to enable that now. And off. So already you can hear that does create a much cleaner tone. It just rounds it off nicer. It just sounds better for the mix, 100%. So that is just using the free EQ. What I have decided as well is to add a sort of a VST plugin. This is a great EQ plugin. So this is TDR VOS Slick EQ. And what this essentially will do is take what I've just done with ReaEQ and just, refine it a bit better. So in this case, there are presets at this box here. This is the HF tilt. So I haven't really amended anything different to what that HF tilt preset is. Mainly take note of the high pass frequency. So this is boosted a little bit from what would be on standard. This is at 36 hertz. And then you'll be able to just copy my settings if you want to here. So take a look at these and, essentially copy them down. Yeah, really just depends on what you want there. Boosted like the lows here, for example, boosted the mids even, and also the gain on the highs. So it's overall just sort of stepping up the tone. Just bringing it a bit more clarity into the mix. Once we've got this, we'll head over to the next one. In fact, actually, sorry, I forgot to show you what it will sound like. So let's keep it off. And then again, halfway through, show you what it's like on. And on. And off. And on. So it's very, very subtle. You don't really hear it too much because most of the EQ is being done from the first EQ we set, but it will just boost them and give it that bit more clarity in the mix. The next one this would be in noise gates. This is pretty crucial if you don't want to constantly have that buzz in your ear when you're not playing. Alternatively, it just clears up any unwanted noise essentially. So with this on, what I've done really, just keep it at the standard setting. This is again within the DAW already. It's a free plugin, and just set that. I've got it set to -32.9. But it depends how loud your guitar is. If it's buzzing like single coil pickups, especially if you're playing like a Fender, I'm not sure what guitar setup you have, then it will buzz quite a bit more. So just drag that up and down until you don't hear that. A good idea is just to not play anything, have your hand over the neck of the guitar, and just let the pickups sort of pick up the noise, and then adjust it accordingly. Attack time we want to keep down, because the longer you have the attack time, then it just, it just delays it a bit more. So you just want to keep that very low. Release time, you want to keep that low as well. So the next would be the VST, which is OrilRivel. So this is almost like a nice reverb slash echo sort of chamber sounds. This is a really, really good plugin. I use it a lot, especially for my high gain, guitar covers. When you want to have a bit more presence, and it just gives it a really, really nice tone. So without this, it sounds a bit harsher, and with it, it just rounds off, and it's almost just like nice fine whiskey almost. It just goes down nicely. So that's it goes down nicely with a mix in this case. So again, default settings. You might want to just take a minute to pause this video, go through. You can click on these, the variation 3 and the reverb variation is 5. Go through this, pause it now, and you'll be able to copy these settings. The main settings to consider would be these 4 sliders. So you'll be able to see on the left, this gives you the overall sort of dryness or wetness of the tone. So the higher you bring that up, the sort of drier the tone is. The more you drag it down to kind of around the 3s or the 6s, then you'll be able to hear it a bit more. It's a bit more sort of wet in the tone. Vice versa, on the right-hand side, you got like the echo. So this is how much of the sound bounces off the wall, essentially. So the further you drag this down, the quieter it would be. So you won't hear it as much. It won't be as much of an effect. The reverb, again, is reverb. So, change that according to what you prefer. And also, if you're playing solo-y stuff, or for example, Shooting Star, Gtune Shooting Star, that's got a really good sort of nice lead tone that is for tapping. So you might want to turn this wet option up a bit more to like the 1s, 2s. Otherwise, if you're just playing sort of heavier stuff like the start of this video, for example, keep that closer to the 5, 6 region. So let's hear it off, and then let's hear it on. So let's play that off and just repeat exactly like we've been doing. And on. And off. And on. So that is almost the piece of resistance. That is where you get that lovely, diverse, sort of smooth and silky tone coming through on what it sounds like. So great plugin, that one. So the next and final one to get the tone, again, this is just another form of EQ. This one is the TDR Nova. So it's the same as the TDR VOS, just a slightly different EQ. And what I've done here is just put another high pass and another low pass. So the frequency's at 10 and it's on a 6 dB slope. Same again with the low pass, that's on a 40 kilohertz and a 6 slope, so that's fairly standard. And then what I've done is just go for like a single band. So you select this one in the middle, and then I've set it to, so these settings here, frequency of 3.6. That's where, again, I've just gone through in the final mix, because this is right at the end of the chain. I've had a look and sort of figured out where it's still sounding a bit too fizzy. So by having a look at the top here, drag it all the way up, left and right, like I told you, like said about before, then you'll be able to hear exactly where to do the opposite of that. So just drag down the gain to wherever you feel comfortable, to the point where it's not as prominent in the mix. You don't want to drag it too far down, because otherwise it will change the overall tone, and you don't want to do that. So maximum I'd go in most cases would be like a 1 dB, 2 dB. If it's more prominent, turn it down to about 3 in this case, like I've done, but you'll be able to hear for yourself. It's pretty obvious which frequency to turn down. So that's just the small dip and low pass and a high pass. And if we just go to what that sounds like now with it off and then again on. Now we're going to turn it on. And off. And on. Okay, so that just kind of completes the tone there. And remember, this is just for the left tone, so or rather the left headphone. So what you want to do from this point on, so once we've got that saved, we'll just hit the cross here, and that is our left track. So to get to the panning section, just go to the trim button. Then you'll be able to see this massive list of 1,000 different things that I don't really look into much. You'll be able to see the track envelopes here. The pan button, go to where it has the tick box, click it, and then it'll be visible. What you want to do ideally is record the tracks first and then do this afterwards. And all you need to literally do, see the orange line that comes up here, drag that 100% to the left. And what we will do, just to show what it sounds like in the mix with a couple of recordings, we're going to unmute this one and obviously enable the tracks on here. So let's just make sure that they're all set up. Yep. So it's exactly the same from the left and the right. And now what we will hear is what the sound of both of them are. So let's check this out now. Okay, so straight away you hear that each track that you're playing, so the one on the left, you might play it a certain way. It'll be like 99% correct, but there'll be something that you do slightly different in there, even if you don't really pay attention to that. And then when you record it a second time, you might play it slightly different, or you might cover where you might have made a mistake in the previous track. So it just gives it a much better and more rounded tone. So if you include that in the mix, let's just get the drum track back on and let's see how it sounds. Okay, and you can see I've gone a bit overkill here. So I've gone ahead and like record about 50 different tracks. I mean, there's like 4 tracks right, 4 tracks left. You don't need to do that really, to be honest. I was just experimenting, seeing what sounds good, what doesn't sound good. If we unmute all of them and play it, then it will just sound like really full. You don't need to do this, but... So yeah, you don't need to, as I said, but you know, it could be cool to try some new stuff, maybe add a few solos into there. And yeah, once you've done that, just make sure you pan left and right correspondingly. You want the equal amounts on the left, you want the equal amounts on the right, just so it balances out each ear. And then also what you might want to do as well in the DAW itself, just down at the bottom here, you'll be able to see, if you drag this bar up, you'll be able to see all of the tracks that you've input here. So this is track 1 going all the way through to track, whatever it is, track 10 in this case. And then you'll be able to see the sliders. So when you're playing, a little mixing sort of tool that you want to look out for is just making sure the volumes are correct on the track. So when we hit play, you'll be able to see that straight away there'll be the green bars. And you want to make sure that each of these is around the 6 mark. So I'll just stop that just so... you can hear, but in terms of what you want to do is have those set to around the 6. So where you see -6 dB in the mix, the more tracks you have, the more volume overall will go into the master. So the master here, you don't want that to be in the red. So you don't want it clipping because that would just add way too much distortion. Instead, what you want to do is go ahead and essentially just make sure that they're all at about 6. And from there, you can even add like a volume limiter. So if you go to the pan, go to the effects on the master switch, and you'll be able to see where the volume pan smoother is. So this is V5 of it. So again, this is just literally within the DAW itself. Add that as a preset and go to no preset and just set the volume to whatever you seem it's clipping, say +6 or +0.6. Go to -0.6. That would then even it out, and then you won't have any clipping. So that is literally how to do it, guys. So it's a fairly straightforward tutorial. I hope that you enjoy sort of messing around with the different VSTs that I mentioned in this video. They're all free, so links in the description. If you enjoyed the video as well, please feel free to support the channel by grabbing me a coffee. Again, link is in the description below. And I look forward to answering any questions you guys have, and any future videos. Just let me know and I'll be able to sort that out for you. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Thank you.